Thanks for tuning in. Today I want to do a styling video, one where I share my tips of what I look for in high street pieces so that they can be mixed with more of my luxe accessories and still be a very put together outfit. I think a top styling tip that gets shared for mixing high and low pieces is that you should accessorize with your luxe designer pieces. And that's great, and that works great, especially as you're building out your collection. But sometimes your lower end pieces, your high street pieces, might give away the fact that your whole outfit isn't as luxe as you want it to be. So these are my top tips for high street fashion pieces, what to look for when you're adding them to your collection to make sure they seamlessly incorporate with your designer pieces. You may have noticed that I changed up my setting just a little bit. I got some peonies and they were really pretty, so I wanted to feature them in a video. But let me know what you think about having kind of extra space on the side where I might, lay out items, and see if you prefer this particular setup. So I think high street fashion is great, or fast fashion is great, especially for incorporating more trendier pieces into your wardrobe. I really try to stay away from super trendy pieces, and even on the high street, I try to look for more classic pieces. So classic silhouettes, classic colors, things like that. The biggest giveaway for high street fashion is really the finishing touches, like the seams and the sewing and things like that. So my top tip for high street fashion is to be mindful of the colors. There are certain colors, so even if it's a red, right? There's a red that is nuanced, that is more complex and more sophisticated than just like a primary red color. Now, there's nothing wrong with a primary red color, and if that's what you're looking for, that's definitely what you should pick up. But otherwise, when in doubt, just pick a neutral color. Black, white, gray, beige. These are colors that will work regardless. There aren't too many tone variations within those neutrals for it to be wrong or go wrong. Personally, I think colors like red, yellow can be harder to kind of get right, so that they're not like cheesy and it's not too primary bright. So it's harder to find those on the high street sometimes where the color is actually really pretty. So when in doubt, pick a neutral color, or at least pick something that has a neutral base and has some color running through it. So for example, this is a midi length skirt in this like animal print or leopard print that I picked up from Zara. This is now a few months old, so I don't think they'll still have it in the stores. Zara is notorious for having 52 seasons a year, and they will have new merchandise hitting the floor every week. So if you see something that you like, I would pick it up then, because if you think you'll come back another time and try to get it, then it's likely going to be gone. This I picked in a more neutral colorway. So the original animal print of having it more a brown tone going through would also be considered a neutral. But for me, I liked that this was more gray and cool tone. It was has a little bit of blue running through it, and it's a soft blue. And that softer palette kind of makes it easier to incorporate into my wardrobe. For example, like if this was in like a pink or in like a yellow or some other kind of colorway, or even like a red, right? Something like that might be a little bit harder to get the tones right. It might be harder to find something to match it with for your top. So leaning more towards a neutral color and something that is more simple can often increase the longevity of the piece within your wardrobe, and also make it easier to style and incorporate with any of the other pieces that you already have in your wardrobe. My next tip is to look at the details of the piece. So oftentimes more designer pieces will have more intricate details, will have extra seams running through it, or an overlay of an additional fabric, more lace running through some of the sleeves, or embroidery, things like that. High street pieces can definitely have a lot of those details as well, but it's sometimes in the execution where it can differ in quality. So when there's a piece that might seem a little more intricate or has more details on it, I think it makes that piece seem more elevated and more expensive than it actually is. For example, this is a dress that I picked up from Zara. The details on this piece are pretty exquisite, so I'm not sure you can tell, but there's actually some ruching on the sleeve here. It's not just like a plain sleeve that's been like, you know, cut out as a pattern and sewn on both sides. It has some extra ruching, which is really difficult to show you, but there's some ruching in here, which is why you can see the two sides are turned up here. And this dress has a slit that goes all the way up to here, and the seam it goes all the way down. So it's not just like an open cut, it was still seamed and hemmed on both sides. So this dress has like more details than like just the average, you know, if you just like cut out a pattern and sewed each side of it. And it actually like pays attention to some of those little details that elevate the look overall. So when you're looking at high street pieces, pay attention to like what details that the item actually has and how well they're actually executed. Sometimes you'll see a piece that's like trying, you know, for example, for this ruching, like they might be trying to do the ruching, but when you try it on, it just like wasn't executed very well. In those cases, like let that one go. That's not going to look good, no matter how beautifully you accessorize with luxe pieces. But it's always nice when a piece has some extra detail like this, because even if it was from Zara, even if it was from high street, it looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. My next tip is specifically around patterns, more specifically floral patterns, because I know that's really trendy these days. I try to stick to smaller flowers, like smaller floral patterns, so either like those ditzy flowers, or they might be a little bit larger than that, but still they're not quite as big and bold. You know, I don't have like this peony size like all over, because I think on the high street, the larger the pattern or the print, sometimes you start losing some of the details that make it really special on like the designer piece. And so it kind of looks like a cheaper version of a more intricate pattern that should be there. You know, earlier I shared my Zara dress, which also has like on a neutral black base, there's some blue and like white flowers all over it. They're not very large. As another example, I have this dress from ASOS, which also I liked, and I got it because the floral pattern is on the smaller side. Also, this has like great details like the puff sleeves here. The stitching is done pretty well to emulate that kind of puffedness that from the shoulder, and it's not just like a straight sew. The pattern on this, as you can see, is definitely more flower. All right, it's not quite like a ditzy pattern, but it's still on the smaller side so that it doesn't look like your grandma's curtains. So that's also something that I look out for when I am purchasing patterned pieces on the high street. Even when it comes to patterns like stripes, right? The thickness of the stripe makes a difference in how it looks. You know, is there like a thick stripe and a thin stripe right after, or are there multiple colors in the stripes? Like, these are all elements that add complexity to the design and can make items look more expensive than otherwise. I don't think it's too far-fetched to associate tailoring with higher end pieces. I think we all kind of expect that the more designer and luxe pieces will have better tailoring versus those that are kind of pumped out for high street fashion or fast fashion. That's why I tend to steer away from pants when I'm shopping on the high street, and I lean towards skirts. Not to imply that skirts wouldn't have any tailoring associated with them, but that's why I end up purchasing more skirts, like A-line skirts or dresses, from the high street. So for example, I have this skirt from Zara, and I have a lot of pieces from Zara, but this is one of my favorite purchases from Zara like ever. This is a skirt, as you can see. It's a black skirt and it's slightly A-lined, and it has pleats going through it, right? So the pleats, the sheer fact that this has pleats automatically kind of elevates the piece makes it look more expensive than it actually was. It has a slight paperback style. If you can see, the band is running through here, and so the pleats run all the way up top, and that gives it a nice detail. It's not like just a band at the top. There's the pleating that continues, and it almost looks like ruffles a little bit at the top. But this also flares out a little bit, so it's very flattering, and there isn't like too much to it, so it's a great like basic piece that you can add a lot of different tops on top of it. And just like imagine, like if you wanted to, you could pair this belt right on top, put on some cute earrings and a nice handbag, and like your outfit's going to look really elevated, you know what I mean? And it's going to like look really good. It's not too difficult to find pieces that are like this, that are great staples, but you just have to know what to look out for. One more tip that I wanted to mention is to check the fabric, the actual fabric of each of the pieces. Things like rayon and polyester are synthetic fabrics that are often widely used in fast fashion, and I think they're great, but sometimes you want to check to make sure they're not see-through. Items that are made out of cotton, you want to feel to see if the cotton is pretty thick or not. I personally prefer thicker cotton because I think it holds its shape better, and it can also like lay better. And definitely when I buy skirts or dresses, I always check to see whether or not the fabric is see-through. If it's see-through, I tend to leave it. Unless I'm purchasing it and I know I want to wear a slip underneath it, and I'm okay wearing a full slip underneath it, I will always stay away from see-through fabric. I find it really difficult to overcome the fact that you can practically see my undergarments underneath and still maintain like a very chic, elevated look. So check the fabrics, check to make sure they're not see-through. So I know I've done a lot of talking about all of these tips, and I shared some pieces. I hope you found all of these tips helpful. These are the thoughts that run through my mind as I am in a high street shop. I try not to indulge too much in fast fashion, but I definitely appreciate the variety that it brings and allows for all of us to dabble into some of the trends. Even if it's with fast fashion, I think you can apply a methodology behind it where you'll pick up pieces that aren't just a seasonal piece and you can have in your wardrobe for years and years, and that helps break some of the cycles that fast fashion may encourage. Let me know if you have any additional tips or things that you look for when you purchase items on the high street. I also share a lot of my styling videos, my outfit photos on my Instagram, so feel free to check me out there. If you have any questions or you'd like to see any of these pieces in more detail, feel free to leave them down below or head on over to Instagram. I'd be happy to help however I can. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate all of your feedback and support. If you like this kind of content, I upload videos every Sunday, so if you'd like to be one of the first to know, feel free to subscribe. So until next time, bye!